All right, Joellen, we just got through hearing about weeds.
Yes.
Now let's talk about ornamental grasses.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Something that we love to see in the garden, right?
Let's talk about something that we really like to have in the garden, and which is ornamental grasses. And I have enjoyed ornamental grasses for years. They've been around for a while,
Yes, long
but
time.
their recent popularity, they have gotten very popular in the last few decades. So the amount of varieties, forms, colors, it's just, it's exploded. Almost every garden center that you go to or nursery will have a whole section
Yes, they do.
on ornamental grasses. When we're talking about ornamental grasses, just remember we're talking about all grass-like plants. They like the sedges, the rushes, the millets, the oats, and ornamental oats, and then the ornamental rices and cattails all in as an ornamental grass section.
Didn't know that. Okay.
So when we talk about ornamental grasses, we're talking about all these different varieties. One thing I like about the grasses is that they look very different. They bring a lot of sound and movement to the garden, because every time the wind blows, those grasses, they just move. And sometimes they are used as a substitute for water in a garden because of their movement, just like the water.
Okay.
Of course, the sun, now that it's fall, the seed heads have all popped up on all of them. And in the evening, those seed heads, they glow in the sun in the evening. So it gives a completely different look to the landscape. So they're very interesting.
I can tell. Can't you tell? Yeah, the glow. How about that?
They glow. They really do. They glow. Of course, ornamental grasses have texture and a form that is unique and different from any other plant in the garden. So that's why when you add it to a landscape or a perennial garden, it gives a different look to your landscape. Massed together, with a house around it on a hillside, it'll change throughout the season. You'll get green, then in the winter they'll be dried, and you get the seed heads in the fall. So it changes. It makes the look of your property look different throughout the season. Of course, they look just as well in a perennial garden with other perennials. Again, different texture and form. I just think they make a unique statement. Some of the grasses that I like a lot of the grasses, but these are my favorites.
Right,
one of them is the Mexican feathergrass.
Now that one?
It's a small, petite grass, very fine textured and really billowy and blows in the wind, and very different from any other plant in the landscape. So it mixes well with that and gives you a different texture in the landscape. Caraxes. We have many caraxes. They all have different colors. There's bronze, there's blues, there's reds, there's all different colors. Great mixed, variegated ones. Good to put in containers. I love putting those in containers with other flowers and stuff, so those look nice. The Miscanthus. Probably the first ornamental grass that I got was the Miscanthus variegatus. And it's a variegated plant that gets about 3 to 4 feet tall, and it's beautiful. Very nice, different color contrast to some of the other plants in the garden. And of course, Adagio, Miscanthus Adagio, probably the best ornamental grass for a landscape because it stays nice, has a nice form, it stays beautiful in this nice form, and is probably the #1 used ornamental grass in the landscape.
For the landscape.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's another one, Miscanthus, that I like real well. It's called Morning Light, and it has more of a upright form to it, but it's variegated and it's got small leaves, so it kind of glows in the landscape because it's got that variegation going. Very nice. And then of course there are the pennisetums. There's a lot of pennisetums, but one of my favorites is the Hamel, and it's dwarf one. But this time of year in the late summer and the fall, got those little foxtail looking seed heads out on it.
Cool. Yeah.
Look really nice.
Yeah.
And another one that I like really well, which is a very large one, it's called Heavy Metal. And you'll get
it will. I can see her. I can see that happening in her yard. The heavy metal.
Because it's a blue-green grass that gets 6 to 8 feet tall.
Oh,
and this
wow,
time
that's
of
pretty
year,
tall.
it's got these beautiful fuzzy inflorescence on the top of them.
Native too.
And I just love it. And they say, I keep hearing that there's supposed to be a dwarf form of it that's only going to get 3 to 4 feet tall, but I've never seen it. I've not seen it anywhere in the trade, so maybe it's just a rumor. Who knows?
Like heavy
but
metal.
heavy metal, yes, nice grass. And of course, we planted an Acorus here at Ogon, the sweet flag out front. So we've got that nice yellow going out there. Yeah. And of course, at the University of Memphis, we've planted Adagio, morning light, and muley grass all along the railroad track. And of course, we have the new bridge that goes across the railroad track.
I saw that.
So invite everybody to come out. If you want to see ornamental grasses in the landscape and visit our new bridge, come and look at the grasses from the bridge and along the railroad track. And it's a large expanse of grass.
So it kind of softens.
It softens the railroad track and the fence and all that long line of grass there. So come by and see
that's
that.
Pretty good. That director of landscape knows what she's doing over there, huh?
Sounds like it. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Pretty good. All right, so how do we care for these ornamental grasses, though? That's what everybody wants to know now.
Yes, everybody wants to know.
There's some care?
Ornamental grasses are supposed to be easy to care for. Yeah. And I have all different kinds around my house, and I'm not real particular about watering, all the time and fertilizing all the time. I don't do that. They should pretty much take care of themselves. If they're not, then possibly that's not the right grass for that particular environment.
Okay.
I would do your research and make sure that your environment, either it's wet, dry, sunny, shady, it doesn't matter. There's grasses that will fit all of that. So you've got to make sure that the grass that you put in this environment want those conditions. And if it doesn't, then switch to another grass because there's plenty of others to choose from. That's what I would do first. And of course, they can be planted anytime the ground isn't frozen. They can be planted when they're dormant or in the growing season. It doesn't matter. Anytime they can be planted.
Okay.
Fertilizing, again, if I even fertilize them, it would be in the spring.
Okay.
As they're coming out of dormancy and getting into the growing season.
Particularly?
I would like to do a soil test and make sure that I actually need all the nutrients in a complete fertilizer. But something like that would be my choice.
Okay.
If I put anything down at all. Right. Because you really don't need to fertilize them every year. Maybe when they're first getting started and getting established, but after that, I have never fertilized any of mine.
I have not either.
Me either.
I haven't done it. They don't. They really.
Do that, they're going to grow.
Yeah, they really don't need it. I mean, their requirements for fertilizer is not high.
Yeah.
So.
True. Yep.
Of course, those that are dormant, now some of them are evergreen, which are great. And they can just, like our Acorus out front. Okay. We don't have to prune that at all because it stays evergreen. Right. But those that go dormant, good time to cut them would be in February.
Good, I'm listening. Okay.
Because February is when they start, they've been dried for a few months. Yeah. They've been blowing in the wind and you've enjoyed that sound. But then again, they start breaking up because they can't hold that. Those dead leaves start breaking apart. Okay. And you want to cut them before they start trashing the whole rest of the yard. So it's good. You have to rake them up from everywhere. So you want to cut them down in the beginning of February, so that you don't have that leaf trash all over the yard.
How do y'all do it on the campus?
Well, it various ways, I mean, depending on
like
how
the big Miscanthus.
When you have big ones, some people will use a weed eater, some people will use head shears.
Yeah, I've seen the head shears.
And that's about as far as I would go. I think head shears would probably, if you have a large. And what I like to do is take a string and string them up and tie them and then cut them off, and then you can just move them over, and you don't have to have all that
floppiness.
Wow. Yeah, but tie them up first and then cut them off, and then you can just set the whole thing in a container and throw it out. So.
Wow. We learned some good stuff on this show, don't we?
Yeah.
How about that? That's pretty good. All right.
And now they don't really have very many pest problems. Good. So and if they do, it's probably a plant that's in the wrong place. So you want to try to move it to a either drier or wetter situation, sunnier or shadier. And of course, when they're clump, the majority of them, there's some that are runners, but the majority of them are clump grasses. And so they grow outward, but then they die in the center. And when they start getting big like that, it's time to dig them up and rejuvenate them by taking a section of the living part and putting it back in the center of where you have originally planted it. And then with the rest of it, you can either add on to your landscape, or you can start trading them with neighbors, and everybody can have ornamental grasses in their yard.
Joellen, that was good stuff. We appreciate that. Yeah, the flowing and the sound.
Yeah, you can tell she's really enthusiastic about it.
I love my grasses.
So thank you for that. We appreciate that. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. To find out more information on this topic, just click on the familyplotgarden.com link in the description.